Let's head to the phone lines right now to talk a little bit of Major League Baseball. On the line is Odyssey Sports MLB insider Bob Nightengale. Check out all of Odyssey's newest sports podcasts on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Bob, happy to talk baseball with you this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure. How are you doing today?
Absolutely, doing fantastic. What do you think is the top storyline in the first 4-5 days of the season?
It was probably the ABS challenge system. Lots been made of that, just on the how many guys are using it and calls being overturned, when to use it. So I think that strategy will evolve. So I think that's been the most dominant story. Team wise, probably nothing jumps out. Maybe the Washington Nationals, beating up on the Cubs and beating up on the Philadelphia Phillies. They're supposed to lose 100 games this year, if not 105, 110. So that's been a mild surprise for sure.
How do you feel the ABS system is working?
They're working well. I think that strategy will evolve in time as far as better save some for the ninth inning. I think the players love it. I'm not sure the umpires do. Some guys can be embarrassed. I think C.B. Buckner had 8 calls, 6 overturned. So no umpire wants to see that. Just like, but I think it's here to stay, and I also think this kind of opens a window that we're going to have a full ABS system probably within 5 years where everything's just going to be computerized.
One thing that has really surprised me the most from just seeing it in person and just seeing the highlights of it is it surprises me how quick it is. Like when I look at instant replay in other sports, you notice how long it takes. It's been kind of startling to me how quick the ABS system has been.
Yeah, it's about 15, 20 seconds. And as you've seen, particularly in Cincinnati over the weekend, fans get into it. You see a little bit of, in tennis where people are oohing and ahhing, but now you're, outright cheers and everything else. So the fans really get a kick out of it. And this shows, too, that some of these pitches are being missed are just barely. I mean, it's almost like, by millimeters. So I think in some ways, too, it shows that the umpires have been a lot more accurate than people think over the years.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of stood out to me as well is, A, how close it is on the margins, where I feel like we used to give that to pitchers a lot of times. And it's been really interesting to see hitters and just their feel for the strike zone because they are confident that this is outside of the strike zone. And more times than not, they've been right.
Yeah, I mean, the catcher's been really on top of that thing. And, the hitters too. The pitchers have been off. I think a lot of teams tell their pitchers, you're not using it because you think every pitch you throw is a strike. So it's been used for, I think, like a handful of times by pitchers, and they have not had a good success rate. So I think it will stick mostly to the catchers and hitters, throughout the year.
You mentioned that you think it's going to evolve over time. How do you think it's going to evolve?
I just think that it won't be a challenge system. It'll just be straight, computerized. That everything, you still have an umpire stand there, but you'll have a earpiece. And he's not calling one single pitch. It'll all be done by the computer. I think we're going to see that next 5-6 years from now. Just take the challenge system completely away and evolve it into that.
Ultimately,
robo umps.
Yeah, no. Ultimately, do you think that's good for the game?
I don't know. I mean, right now you're already hearing that the dugouts are a lot more quiet. You're not hearing the chirping from the players to the umpire. Obviously, you're not seeing the old days where guys on Lupinella, are picking up a base and throwing it, into the outfield or kicking dirt all over the umpire. So I think it loses that kind of luster. I think people, love the arguments, and now it's like, why should a manager really argue with an umpire? You're arguing with a computer. What are you gonna do? Rip out the computer plug and and the outlet, that sort of thing. So I think it does miss we will miss the kind of the character of the game, particularly the umpire-manager confrontations.
Right now, we're talking to Bob Nightengale, talking a little bit of Major League Baseball. We are on the line with our Odyssey Sports insider, Bob Nightengale. Be sure to check out all of the Odyssey newest sports podcasts on Spotify and Apple as well. Let's go through the divisions and get your feelings on it. Let's start in the American League. We'll go to the American League East, a very competitive division. How do you handicap that division?
Well, the Yankees had full of confidence in spring training. They loved the way it looked, and they're certainly playing that way now against some great pitching, and they're feeling good about themselves. Blue Jays, kind of the co-favorite, they've been kind of beat up with some injuries. Lost Ponce last night. They've got three of their top pitchers on the injury list. So, here's a chance for the Yankees to pull out for a little bit. Boston's offense has just disappeared. Their pitching, has been okay, but the offense has been miserable. Baltimore, same thing. Is like, the big knock on them was they never got that star or that stud starter in the free agency, and I think it's haunting them a little bit already.
Last year, great year for Toronto, great year for the Yankees. Do you think that Baltimore can take that next step forward? Because it felt like a couple of years ago they were up next, and it's just never materialized.
No, I mean, 2 years ago they won 100 games and looked like, okay, here they come. They have a big window, and it hasn't. Then they went backwards last year, and end up firing their manager and everything else. I think offensively they've taken a step forward, but pitching wise, they never got that that big time free agent. So I'm not sure they're going to challenge the Yankees and Blue Jays. I think they can certainly make the playoffs as a wild card team, but I still think they're a little step back from those two teams.
Let's move to the American League Central. The Tigers were the favorite coming into the division. A lot of people like the Royals. A lot of people like Cleveland as well. What are your thoughts on the American League Central?
I think it's certainly Detroit's division to lose. Particularly getting Framber Valdez. Re-signed, brought back Justin Verlander, who has struggled. They struggled in the spring, and that was a game last night. Struggled last night. Just 3 2/3 innings, gave up 5 runs. They got hit hard. So they need to fix that problem. Good offense. Kevin McGonigal is a real thing. The kid infielder. So I still think Detroit's clearly the team to beat. I mean, they better win the division. And this is the last year of Tarek Skubal being there. They got to take advantage of that.
Looking at the American League West, it seems like it's in between Seattle or Houston in that division. Is that how you handicap it?
Seattle for sure. I mean, got the great young pitching. I mean, it's amazing they've squandered that over the years. They finally, made the playoffs last year and one game away from the World Series. The sleeper, I think, is the Texas Rangers. They got some great young pitching. As soon as Jacob deGrom comes back, a little stiff neck, missed his first start. But that's a good team. It's a healthy team. Skip Schumacher's done a nice job there already. So, watch out for the Rangers. I still think Seattle's a team to beat, but Texas could put a scare into them.
Do you see a possible sleeper in the American League? You mentioned the favorites. Do you see a Kansas City? You mentioned a Texas. We talked about Baltimore there briefly. Outside of those top 3 or 4 teams in the American League, do you think there's a sleeper that could win 85 to 90 games?
I think Texas is that sleeper. No one's talking about them for the playoffs or anything else, and Seattle in the division. But I think Wyatt Langford could be MVP candidate. I think Texas is a team to watch out for. When you talk to scouts or everything else, they say no one's talking about this team, but this team is very dangerous.
Right now, we're talking a little baseball with Bob Nightengale, celebrating the start of the baseball season as we were having opening days around the sport. Let's jump from the American League to the National League. The NL East, 4 of those teams are off to 3-1 starts. That's obviously not going to hold up. This feels like the Mets and everybody else.
Yeah, I mean the Phillies. I still think this is the Phillies division. I know they got up to a rocky start here. It's still a team that won 96 games last year. Everybody's coming back. So I still like the Phillies in the division. We'll see about the Mets. Nice start. They've completely, changed it, turned that thing around. Clubhouse culture. They thought they had a problem. Obviously, horrific nosedive last year. Changed the chemistry and stuff in the clubhouse. We'll see how it works. but I still like Philadelphia over the Mets. And we'll see about Atlanta. I mean, they've had so many pitching injuries, and they never went outside to get help. But so far so good, and they certainly got the position players, and if Ronald Acuna can bounce back and be the Acuna of old, the MVP Acuna, then I think you might have something special. But right now I still think it's Phillies, Mets, Atlanta.
It's weird to me to have a conversation about the National League Central and not have St. Louis there in the mix. I think they are a good team. I don't know if they can win the division. Feels like Chicago should win that division. How do you handicap the NL Central?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time since the late '90s that the Cardinals are undergoing a rebuild. So yeah, they're gonna, you got a chance to lose 100 games. So yeah, very strange for Cardinal fans. But they feel like, to get where they want to go, they got to tear it down. It seems like every single year we say this is the Cubs division. They're the favorite. And once again, we're saying that. But, you look up every year and the Brewers win that thing. They won, 3 in a row for the last 5. Brewers are still a very good team. They got some kind of magical formula, maybe the beer suds in Milwaukee, but it works. So I still think it's a, two-headed monster right there. And I think both the Brewers and the Cubs both make the playoffs. We'll see which one wins the division.
Is there any reason to have a serious conversation about the NL West? I mean, the Dodgers are going to win probably 105 games. Is there any chance they're even challenged in that division?
No, there isn't. I think the Cubs. I mean, I'm sorry. I think the Dodgers don't even win 100. I just think that cruise because they're going to save everybody for the postseason. They're going to give guys rest and everything else. I'm not sure there's a team in the division that's capable of winning more than 85 games. Might even struggle to win 500. I think the Padres are down. The Rockies are, of course, down again. The Diamondbacks are more of a 500 team. Giants, kind of a tough read. I think they got a chance to win maybe up to 85, 81 to 85 wins. But I agree that, the Dodgers have got this thing sewn up already.
I asked you about a sleeper in the American League. Do you have one in the National League? I'm trying to think. Maybe, probably Atlanta. It's almost like with all the pitching injuries, nobody ever talks about them, but they know how to win with Walt Weiss. The other sleeper, I would say, with the Giants. They still have a very good team, good pitching. They played well in spring training. So you got a tough read on them. Rookie manager who's never even been professional baseball before with Tony Vitello. So they could be that kind of sleeper. They certainly have enough star power. So if they slide in, when you got Logan Webb and Robbie Ray, it could cause some damage, in the playoffs. But let's see if they get in. I know we have a long way to go until we get there, but what's the current situation when it comes to labor peace? The game feels like it's in such a very healthy place right now, but it does appear there's a cloud over the sport.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, not until December 1st, where the players aren't going to go on strike. So wait for the lockout, and we'll see how long it lasts. I mean, last time they had it, they still squeezed in 162 games, so that could still happen. I don't think it'll be a lengthy one like some people think. I think, will there be a lockout? Yeah. But I think it's going to see who blinks first, and if they can get anything close to a hard salary cap, maybe do more of a soft type of thing. But, the big thing is just, the owners have to get together and say, okay, how are we going to resolve this disparity? When the Los Angeles Dodgers are making $330 million a year just off local TV, there's teams like the Brewers making $20 million a year. Some way they got to rectify that and make sure more teams are on equal footing.
How far apart do you think the players and the owners are when it comes to the money?
Well, I think just there's the word salary cap. The players don't want to hear it. The owners say, let's get to competitive balance. We need that sort of thing. Teams like the Dodgers are just, making that kind of money. It's almost like what Andrew Friedman, their president of baseball operations, said. Would people be more happy if we were just lining our owners' pockets with the money instead of giving it back to the, giving to the players? So I think it's good to have a juggernaut like that. I mean, we had that with the Yankees. We had it obviously, in the NFL with the, Patriots and Chiefs and, 76ers, Celtics, Lakers, the NBA. So I think it's good to have a team like that. I think, it's fun for fans, either if you're in LA loving it or, live outside LA hating it.
That was Odyssey Sports MLB insider Bob Nightengale. Check out all of Odyssey's newest sports podcasts on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Bob Nightengale with USA Today. Bob, great stuff. Look forward to catching up with you as the baseball season continues to progress.